It's time. Time to pick every spread and every total for week 4 of the 2025 NFL season. Welcome, football fans and gridiron gamblers. It's Mitch here, and it's officially bounce back week on Money Mitch. Week 3, I know, it was awful. It was atrocious. There were bad beats across the board. For me, for you, but especially for me, it was an all-time bad week. And I'll take that punch straight to the jaw. But it's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how you respond. It's about how you get back up and you keep on punching. You keep on moving forward. And in week 4, we're about to make some money. So if you're with me, Gronk spike the like button. And don't be a jabroni. Subscribe to the channel for weekly NFL betting advice. Let's get started with Thursday Night Football, a really intriguing Thursday night matchup between two very even teams in the NFC West, two rivals, two teams that are 2-1 that have both lost to the 49ers. But it's 43.5 is the total. I like the under in this game. And for the spread, I'm leaning Seattle to win and to cover. Although part of me just suggests that I should take the home team, the home dog, in a very even game. But I don't know. Seattle has kind of owned this matchup in recent years. Mike Macdonald gave Kyler Murray issues last year. And I am just not a fan of the current Cardinal product offensively. It's a reason we faded their offense against the 49ers last week. And I think they're going to have similar issues against Seattle, even at home. Mike Macdonald's defense is tough. They're strong. They're very good on the defensive front. They get pressure up the middle. And Macdonald's very creative in the back end with his coverages, even to the point where he's lost multiple players at defensive back early this season, but he's been able to overcome it, and they're playing spectacular football. I do believe some of them could be back in this game, namely Nick Emanwuri, their rookie safety, who's their expected starting nickel corner. He could be back, which would be big, especially to match up with Trey McBride, who is really the only Cardinals weapon that you have to cover, because Marvin Harrison Jr. can't catch the ball, right? And I don't really think Marvin Harrison Jr. is breaking any defense right now. He's not a threat. He's really not. He's a complete bust. Like, the Cardinals just have very little explosion in their offense. Their entire offense is tied around Kyler Murray extending plays, quick short passes, screen passes. Like, they just don't have anything. Their run game is not the same as last year. James Conner is injured. He's out for the year. Benson is explosive, but he's not as consistent. He's not as great of a grinder as James Conner. So it takes away from that in between the tackles element of their offense, that toughness, that physicality, that grit of the Cardinals offense last year. That was actually a pretty good unit. This year, teams have figured out their run game a little bit better. They're simply not run blocking the same way. And they have very little in the drop back pass game because, like, look at their receiving core. Michael Wilson, like Greg Dortch, Zay Jones. Like, this is pathetic. Like, they have no speed, very little depth. And with Marvin Harrison Jr. not shining, it's really just Trey McBride. It's really just Trey McBride. And I think a Mike Macdonald-led defense can find a way to continue to confuse Kyler, contain Kyler in the pocket, get a nice interior push, and they've been really solid against the run. So I'm not really expecting the Cardinals to get that going this week. So I really think this game is going to be a struggle for the Cardinals to score points. Even when they get to the red zone, I think it will be a struggle when they move that ball. So then on the flip side, Sam Darnold has actually been really efficient this year. Part of that has been playing the Pittsburgh defense, who looks atrocious. More on that in a bit. And also playing the Saints. That certainly will help a quarterback's production. I do think Seattle's offense is slightly overrated. And I do think the Cardinals' defense is slightly underrated. I think they're well coordinated. These are both, by the way, head coaches with a defensive mind, which just inherently lean under there, right? But then also, I think the Cardinals have a pretty good front four. And the Seahawks, if they still do have an issue on offense, it's that offensive line. You can definitely find a way to get some push with Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Josh Sweat, Baron Browning. Pretty solid front four for the Cardinals. And Seattle has struggled to run the ball consistently, right? 2 out of the 3 games, they kind of struggled to run the ball against the Saints, even despite the big points and the big offensive output. And they did struggle to run the ball against the Niners. So 2 out of the 3 games, they've struggled to run the ball. JSN has been a huge factor, and he should continue to be that in this game. I would expect him to have a huge game. Cooper Kupp's been okay. The rookie, Horton, has been pretty explosive. I expect Seattle to make more plays in the passing game, more explosives, more downfield plays than the Cardinals, which is why I think they win this game. That's the way I'm going to lean. But at the same time, I think the Cardinals defense will slow down the Seahawks from running the ball. I think there will be plays where they are able to get pressure on Sam Darnold. And I think this one will be kind of tight with 2 defensive masterminds, gurus going at it. So give me the under 43.5, and I'll take Seattle minus the point. They have dictated and set the tone and won this series consistently, it feels like. So I'm going to take Seattle. Next, this game, a Europe game, okay? I believe it's in Dublin, if I'm not mistaken. 40.5 is the total. Minnesota favored by 2.5 versus Aaron Rodgers. Carson Wentz is the starter for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to go under, but it's not for the reason you would think. It's not because Carson Wentz is playing. It's because the Steelers' offense is really bad. So I'm going to go under here. Now, I don't know if I would bet it just because the Steelers' defense has been atrocious. Like, they have been really bad. But I definitely like the Vikings. If I were to bet this game, I would just take the Vikings here, and this might end up being a best bet. The Vikings got on track last week at home against the Bengals. Now, they did benefit from a lot of turnovers, but they also dominated the game offensively. They were able to run the ball spectacularly well with Jordan Mason. They were able to get some of their pieces going from TJ Hawkinson to Justin Jefferson, and Wentz looked very smooth and just as good as JJ McCarthy, if not better. The offensive line is also a little bit healthier with Christian Darrisaw, and that defense is healthier than the first couple of weeks. Andrew Van Ginkel is back, a playmaker, a great screen defender, very important against the Steelers. Because the Steelers, they just throw screens. That's all they do. They throw the ball at the line of scrimmage. They throw screens to Jonnu Smith. They throw screens to Jalen Warren. They throw screens to DK Metcalf. That's all they do is screens, quick throws. It's quick throws or it's fade routes down the sideline. That's all it is. They have no intermediate passing game. Their offensive line struggles to hold up in protection. And it's Aaron Rodgers versus Brian Flores. We saw this matchup last year. The Jets, the Vikings, in a similar game. I think it was in London. Like, it was a different venue. It was a neutral site. And Rodgers struggled with the amount of times he was getting hit. He struggled with the blitzes because he was trying to get the ball out so fast. And the Vikings rally and tackle. And I don't think the Steelers will be able to run the ball. The Steelers have no running game. Absolutely none. They honestly only really have DK Metcalf, who's a competent threat at wide receiver, and Isaiah Rodgers has been playing really well for the Vikings at corner. And again, I just think it's a mismatch between Pittsburgh's protection, Aaron Rodgers, who can't move, the structure of the Steelers' offense against Brian Flores' defense, the different things he can throw at you, the different blitzes and disguises, and just the speed of that front against Aaron Rodgers. I think Van Ginkel is going to make a big impact. I think Jonathan Grenard will have a major game. The Patriots defense mostly shut down the Steelers. Outside of a short field from a Ramondre Stevenson fumble and really like the second last drive of the game, like they really didn't do much at all. And honestly, the Patriots only lost to the Steelers because they fumbled 4 times. 4 times. The Vikings, they have a really good coaching staff. Kevin O'Connell will find ways to scheme up against this defense and the Steelers that are struggling to defend most things. They did play better against the run against New England, but Minnesota's run game has been much more efficient, much more consistent, and much more explosive than the Patriots. That will give them issues, I think. And then there's no one on the Steelers covering Justin Jefferson. They get Jordan Addison back. They've got their plethora of weapons. They've got all their playmakers. I like Kevin O'Connell. I like Brian Flores. I like a great coaching staff in a neutral site. I'm going to take the Vikings. They're the better team. The Steelers are not very good. I'm not buying the hype. I'll take the Vikings. But I'm going to go under 40.5 because I don't think the Steelers will score more than 17. So that's why I take the under 40.5. The total in Tennessee-Houston is 39.5. It might even be 38 at this point. 38.5. Houston, 6.5, 7-point favorites. At 7, I think I have to lean towards the Titans to cover this game. I would not advise betting this because Tennessee has been really, really bad at covering spreads. I think there's something like 3-18 under Callahan covering spreads. That is atrocious. So Tennessee has become unbettable. As big of a number as they could get, they have become unbettable. You shouldn't bet them. It's just a losing bet, no matter how big the number is and no matter how atrocious the Texans' offense is. If I had to say over under 39.5, I'd also say the under, right? And especially if I'm going to take the points with Tennessee, I'm going with under 39.5. The Texans' offense right now is atrocious. They still continue to struggle with picking up stunts and blitzes. Stroud has taken way too many bad sacks. He's holding the ball too long. He's been inaccurate. Now, maybe they got something going late in the game against Jacksonville. It did kind of feel that way, but they continued to make mistakes, like Nico Collins fumbling the ball, Stroud throwing a bad interception. Both times they were traveling into Jacksonville territory, and they turned it over. Now, Tennessee's a bad football team. I have them as the second worst team in the NFL. They are a tough team to bet on, especially on the road with a rookie quarterback. But this is a divisional game. You'd expect some feistiness, some toughness. You would expect some bitterness here. I think it will be a little close because I just don't know if the Texans can win by margin, but I'm not going to bet on the Titans. Forget about it. So don't bet this game. Don't be an idiot, but I will take the Titans with the points. I will take the under as well. Next, the Cleveland Browns at the Detroit Lions. This spread's 9.5. Detroit is favored here. The total 44.5. It feels a bit high just because Cleveland has maybe the best defense in the league and Cleveland has one of the worst offenses in the league. So Cleveland just inherently is an under team. But at the same time, I could easily still see Detroit winning by margin here. I think Detroit wins and covers. I'm really considering this as a best bet because Cleveland is not the same team on the road. Cleveland does not play defense the same way on the road. We've already kind of seen that they gave up a ton of points to Baltimore, a similarly potent offense to Detroit on the road in Baltimore. Now, they did kind of slow down Lamar and Derrick Henry, and they did a good job, but turnovers, the offense of Cleveland just gets out of whack. Cleveland will look to lean on the running game, which they've been much better running the ball lately with Judkins back. And they don't have bad weapons, but their offensive line is a real sore spot with a immobile quarterback like Joe Flacco. DeJuan Jones, one of their starting tackles, is now out for the year. They have one of the worst tackle situations in the NFL. So they're going to give up pressure on the road against Aiden Hutchinson and company. Muhammad just had 2.5 sacks against the Ravens. So I really like what I saw from the Lions defense against the Ravens. It wasn't always perfect, but I thought they played extremely tight coverage. I thought they were very well schemed up front. Their blitzes were very calculated. And I think that's going to give Joe Flacco and this offense a ton of issues. I think eventually Detroit will just win by margin. I think eventually they'll run the ball. Eventually they'll find their explosives. I just feel like Cleveland, they're a very good defense. They don't seem to play the same on the road. And at the same time, this is a strong offensive line. This is the best offensive line that they have faced. For sure. This with Penei Sewell on one side, right? Decker on the other side. The young guards are playing better. they maybe, if any team so far can block Cleveland, it's Detroit. Amon-Ra has just been unreal this year, and Cleveland doesn't have a great nickel position. Jamison Williams is always a threat to beat man coverage because he might be the fastest player in football. Sam Laporta is a one-on-one problem in space. Jahmyr Gibbs is a one-on-one problem in space. I think this is a really tough matchup for Cleveland because Detroit is extremely well balanced on offense. They play so well in their dome. They set the tempo, they get the lead, and then their defense is going to come after them with aggression, and Flacco is probably going to make some mistakes. So I'm going to take Detroit to win, Detroit to cover. I will take the under because I'm not sure that Cleveland will be able to score enough points for this to push over, but I don't love the total in this game. I would just go with Detroit -9 in my opinion. Next, 45.5 is the total. Washington -1.5. It's really difficult here to not pick Washington. You know, the football gambler brain in me would say to fade the noise and take Atlanta because Atlanta just lost 30-0. Now they're back at home. Everyone's doubting Michael Penix. They just had a Sunday night game not long ago where they dominated the Vikings on the road. Washington's still without Jaden Daniels. Marcus Mariota's coming off a really good game against the Raiders. Like, something is like telling me, you know, Atlanta, this is to me an unbettable game because typically I'm just very bad at picking Washington games over the last 2 years. And at the same time, I feel like Atlanta is a really tough team to bet on because Michael Penix is very up and down. We did see these two teams play a really tight game late last season where Atlanta pushed Washington to the limit and Michael Penix played a really solid game in that one. I think Atlanta hopefully understands that they should run the ball more with Bijan Robinson, and they should be able to run the ball against the Commanders. The Commanders have also really struggled covering downfield this year. Their coverage has not been as good this year as last year. I think they're one of the lowest graded teams in coverage. This is a spot for Drake London to get it right. Darnell Mooney and Penix to get it right. Kyle Pitts has not been bad this year. So Atlanta might have a formula offensively to move the football. They might be motivated here. On the other side, Terry McLaurin could be out. I almost expect him to be out. I want to say, like, if Terry McLaurin is out, I might go with Atlanta. And if Terry McLaurin is playing, I might go with Washington. That's kind of how thin I think this margin is. Mariota, though, is not a huge difference from Jaden Daniels. I think the books often misprice this difference between the two because Washington is a really good running football team, and they're very good with their quick passing game, their QB run game, their overall offensive scheme. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's easy to operate. That being said, I think it comes down to whether or not the Commanders have Terry McLaurin. I think if they do, they win. Because it's hard to win without your number one receiver and your quarterback. And I think if they don't, Atlanta wins this game. So that's the way I'm going to go. In terms of the total, 45.5, I'm going to lean over. I think both these offenses are going to be tough to stop on this day. I'm going to go with the over. Atlanta's defense has played solid. Atlanta's offense has not played well. But I actually expect an Atlanta offense bounce back here. Next. 47.5 is the total for Bills and Saints. The spread is 16.5. I'm going to take the Bills to win, obviously. I'm going to take the Bills to cover, and I'm going to take the over, I guess. I'm not betting this in any way, shape, or form. 16.5 is an outrageous number, but they could easily win by 17 to 20 points. The Saints are a bad team. They looked awful on the road last week. The first 2 weeks, they played competitively at home. Week 3, they played like absolute doggy doo-doo. Now, that being said, you would almost want to take the team that's coming off a really embarrassing loss. But they're playing, in my opinion, the best player in the NFL and maybe the best team in the NFL. And if there are leaks in the Bills, it's defensively. So, like, again, the total is tough because the Bills could easily beat the Saints here like they did the Jets, where it's like 30-10. They still cover, but it's an under. You know what I'm saying? So, but at the same time, the Bills defense hasn't looked great. I mean, they didn't look good against the Ravens for sure. And they definitely didn't look great against the Dolphins either. But Spencer Rattler has been up and down. The offense of the Saints has been up and down. That's a tough total to bet, to be honest. I'm going to go over because I honestly feel like the Bills on their best day could score 40 by themselves. So I'm going to go, I mean, the Seahawks literally just did that. So I'm going to go over, but I think if I had to bet anything, I'd probably just bet the Bills, which I don't want to do. But that's just, yeah. I'm going to take the Bills probably to win by 17 to 24 points. Next, the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a really tough game to bet right now because of injuries. The total is 43.5. The spread is 3.5 for the Eagles. Early in the week, I told you to bet the Eagles, and I think there's some uncertainty here. So Nolan Smith has been placed on IR for the Eagles. Lane Johnson is practicing injured. Zach Bond is practicing injured. They're expected to play. The Eagles are mostly healthy. But at the same time, Tampa could be getting reinforcements with Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin. And that would change the math. A big reason I wanted you to bet the Eagles is because Mike Evans is not playing. If Mike Evans is not playing, and Chris Godwin's not playing, you basically have Emeka Egbuka and Sterling Shepard and Cade Otton, and a run game that isn't really working right now. What worries me here is the game's in Tampa. Todd Bowles has been very effective at slowing down Jalen Hurts and the Eagles' run game in the past, and we still have questions about the Eagles throwing the ball. That being said, if I had to make a bet, I'd still lean towards the Eagles. They're the healthier team by far. The Bucs are missing numerous offensive linemen. We don't know how good Chris Godwin will look right away. We do have questions about Tampa's secondary. And, the Eagles still have a good defense, with or without Nolan Smith. The Eagles also probably remember that game last year where they were embarrassed in Tampa Bay, and they didn't have Devontae Smith. They didn't have A.J. Brown. They didn't have those receivers. I think the Eagles are actually effective throwing the ball in this game, and they lean into that. So I think the Eagles win. I think the Eagles cover. Give me the... Again, it's very hard to bet on a total here when I don't know who's playing receiver for Tampa. I don't know if Tristan Wirfs is playing. I'm going to go... It's tough, man. Because Tampa and Eagles at full strength, I'd probably say over. But it's hard for me to imagine how Tampa stays in this game if it's not lower scoring. Because, how are they going to move the ball without these weapons and the offensive linemen that they're missing? Baker is a dog, though. I mean, he seriously should be up for MVP conversations. I'm going to go under just because Fangio and Bowles, I feel like they'll find a way to make this a little bit nasty. And I do feel like the Eagles, the way they want to play, they want to be able to run the ball. And typically when they can't really run the ball, that slows down their offense. And I don't think they'll be able to run the ball that well against Tampa Bay. So, and I'm just going to count on Todd Bowles, and his history against the Eagles. But I just feel like the Bucs won't really be able to move the ball the same way that they have in the past because they don't have the weapons to do so, and their offensive line is completely depleted. So I think the Eagles kind of win an uglier game, and I'm going to say under 43.5. I'm going to say Eagles by more than 3.5, but I am not betting the total. That's absolutely certain. Next, 43.5 is the total for Patriots Carolina. New England minus 5.5. I'll take the Patriots to win and cover. I will take the under 43.5, assuming Christian Gonzalez plays for the Patriots. The Panthers defense actually, I think, has been a bit better than people think. Last week, it played really well. And they've been better against the run than I would have projected. They did a good job against the Cardinals. Overall, they weren't terrible against the Falcons, but I still feel like you can run the ball against the Panthers. There's no doubt about it. But I think the biggest reason is I really like this Patriots defensive matchup against Carolina. They have multiple interior offensive linemen missing. The Patriots currently rank as the number 1 team in pass rush win rate from the defensive tackle position. Christian Barmore, Milton Williams. When you get push up the middle on Bryce Young, it's hard for him to see over the middle as it is. If he has that pocket pushed in his face, it's going to be difficult for him to make downfield throws. And if Teteroa McMillan, who's banged up, enters this game and has to face Christian Gonzalez, that's going to minimize his number 1 target. Now they put their tight end Sanders on IR. Their run game has sort of struggled, and the Patriots' run defense has been pretty solid. And honestly, I just don't know how the Panthers score more than like 17 points. At the same time, I do think that the Patriots' offense has been underrated so far because they've mostly just shot themselves in the foot. They mostly just turned the ball over. I mean, they probably should have scored 30 points against the Steelers last week. But the Panthers' defense has honestly been better than the Steelers, especially in the secondary. Panthers have actually been decent against the pass. You know, you look at what they did against Penix. You look at what they held Kyler to. And in week 1, they actually picked off Trevor Lawrence, I think, multiple times, if I'm not mistaken. And they didn't have a bad game against Trevor Lawrence either. So I actually think Carolina, a stiffer test than the Steelers in the secondary. J.C. Horn, Trayvon Moehrig, Nick Scott's actually playing pretty well. That nickel corner who had the pick 6 last week's playing decent. Mike Jackson's underrated. I think Carolina can give the Patriots receivers some issues in terms of that coverage because I do feel like the Patriots don't have overwhelming receiver talent. Now, where I think the Patriots can find their way is by running the ball. Drake May extending plays. The tight end position, Hunter Henry's been fantastic. Over the middle of the field is probably where the Patriots need to attack Carolina. I think that their defense dominates this game. I think Drake May finds a way to not turn the ball over, and the Patriots don't fumble the ball 4 times, and I think they find a way to win by at least a touchdown. Might not be the prettiest, but I'm going to say like 24-10 Patriots. So I think my favorite play is under 43.5, but I would say the Patriots cover 5.5. I think they win by 6, 7, maybe 10 points. I think they're considerably better than Carolina. Next. 44.5 is the total in Chargers-Giants. I will take the under. And the Chargers are -6.5. I would take the Chargers. Okay, this is maybe the most complicated, well-scouted, schemed defense in football in the Chargers, playing a rookie in his first ever start. Now, it is a West Coast team traveling East Coast in an early time slot game. Also, with all the travel they've had from the Brazil trip, and then the Vegas, back to LA, now from the West to the East. So there's been a lot of travel, which makes you a little murky and nervous about that when it comes to the Chargers. But the way that the Chargers are wired right now, the way that Jim Harbaugh has them fueled up and fired up, and the way they come out with their energy, the way that Justin Herbert is dialed in, it's really hard to fade this Chargers team, especially considering the secondary they're playing in this game. The Giants have given up big plays every single game of the year so far. They gave up big plays against Washington on the ground. They gave up big plays through the air to the Cowboys. They gave up big plays through the air to the Chiefs. Scramble drills from Mahomes. An offense in the Chiefs that rarely ever get explosives. I mean, think about it, right? The Chargers have been one of the more explosive passing games in football, especially Quentin Johnston, and Justin Herbert has just been absolutely lights out. Now, what does scare you about this game is that the Giants do have really good pass rush talent, and the Chargers do have a very depleted offensive line that could give up a lot of pressure. But Herbert has just shown such moxie, such composure. I think that they will be able to mix in a good, strong running game from Hampton. It might be a breakout game here for the rookie Hampton. And then you combine that with some play action, some downfield shots from Justin Herbert when he is protected. And I think you could get a mastery from Greg Roman and Justin Herbert, and I think you could get some explosives. I think it will be spotty because I think there will be drives where the Giants are able to hold them with their front four, but that's why I like the under, because I feel like a rookie against the strongest red zone defense in the NFL, one of the strongest coverage units in the NFL, the Giants' run game is just fine. It's nothing special. Scattaboo, he can't really explode. He's just like a grinder of a running back. I do think the Chargers will find multiple ways to double up Malik Neighbors in key situations. Like, Minter is just an absolute genius, and you could see him force some mistakes from the young rookie Jackson Dart. So I like the under 44.5. I don't see how the Giants score more than 20 on the Chargers, and I do think the Giants pass rush has some moments here to keep it under. At the same time, though, I just think Herbert makes too many plays, and I think the run game for the Chargers does have access to a pretty interesting game for the upside for them to cover this game. Next, Jacksonville, San Francisco. The total is 47, apparently. That doesn't even feel accurate. I'm going to have to look that up and check it. The 49ers are -3. This is really difficult right now because we don't know who the quarterback is. The Niners might even be 3.5-point favorites. The total I am seeing is 47. So obviously, just inherently based on my reaction, I'm going to go with an under. Now, Nick Bosa is out for the year, and the 49ers don't have a lot of notice to adjust. But the Niners defense has been really, really good this year. And I think Robert Saleh is the main reason why. I think the fire they're playing with, the energy, the speed they're playing with, the run defense has been very solid as well. And I haven't seen an opponent really run the ball on them. Now, that could be different without Nick Bosa, so time will tell. Like, this is what makes this game unbettable, is the Niners have been winning their games mostly due to their defense, and because they have so many injuries on offense. I think their offense eventually will become a top 5 elite unit, but it's going to take some time with Purdy and Kittle and Ayuk and Jennings and Pearsall and McCaffrey and everyone being healthy. But right now, they're not all healthy. So if I had to bet anything right now, I'd bet the under, because I think Jacksonville's defense is actually underrated. I think that Jordan Lewis, that pickup they had from Dallas, is playing really well. Their linebackers are both very solid. I feel like Trayvon Walker has been a monster this year, and Josh Hines-Allen's also very competent. Eric Armstead, revenge game. I feel like Jacksonville's defense is very solid. So I think that with that, combined with how the Niners have played on defense, with how messy the Jacksonville passing game is, how inaccurate Trevor Lawrence has been, how their usage of Travis Hunter has been, how Brian Thomas has been extremely rattled game after game after game. Like, I think this under is actually money. Like, because I know Purdy probably does play here, and the Niners do have most of their offensive line intact, but Juwan Jennings is questionable. He could or maybe not play. Kittle is certainly out. Pearsall is a bit banged up, but expected to play. Just feels like a lot to overcome. The Niners have been grinding out these victories. And their run game has not been great this year so far. I think as long as the Niners are able to contain the ground game of Travis Etienne, they won't have many issues with this Jacksonville passing game. I really don't expect it. I think the Niners have a good young secondary. So I like the under. I'd probably stay away from the spread just because there's so much uncertainty on the Niners side, and it's also hard to fade the Niners at home. They certainly have the better coaching staff. Kyle has been fantastic this year. Robert Saleh, as I've mentioned already a few times, has been very good. And I do think Purdy's the better quarterback. McCaffrey's been a magician so far this year. Pearsall's been incredible. I do think that the Niners, if Jennings plays, Pearsall's good to go, Purdy plays, I'd probably take the Niners to win and cover. But if not, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to go with the Niners just because I think that's most likely to happen. But I'm uncertain about the result of this game. I do think, though, it's asking a lot for these offenses to go over 47. That's a weird line to me. Next, 49.5 is the total between the Colts and the Rams. Rams are favored by 3.5. Here we are in the year 2025, getting a total with Daniel Jones at 49.5. The Rams are favored by 3.5. Now, I don't know what to expect from this game. The Rams did a good job against the Eagles' run game, but I would make an argument that the Colts have ran the ball better, and Jonathan Taylor has played better than Saquon, and I think the Colts have ran the ball better than the Eagles. I'd also make a pretty good argument that the Colts are the best offense that the Rams have played by a good margin. I think they're better than the Eagles by a significant amount from what we've seen from the Eagles so far. I would also make the argument that they're much better than Tennessee or Houston, not even in the same category. Daniel Jones has looked good. I'd also say, though, that this is the best pass rush the Colts have played. The Rams have a very good pass rush. The Colts have played, I guess, they have played Denver. So maybe I'll take that back. So they have played Denver. That was in Indy. It's not in LA. It's not on the road. Fair enough. Okay. I'm going to take the over just because, I want to. I'm not going to bet it. It's a high number. And I still have my Daniel Jones, kind of doubts, let's just say. So I'm not going to bet it. But if I have to pick it, which I do, I'm picking the over because I think that Stafford is going to be able to slice up the Colts down in the secondary. The Colts have had injuries at corner. And yeah, the Colts don't have a bad pass rush. Latu's been pretty good. They've got Buckner. Buckner could be a game wrecker here for the Colts. This is tough. I don't know who's going to... I could see the Colts... Man, this is tough. The Colts are due to lose, right? They probably should have lost to the Broncos. The Rams are probably going to be angry after they lost to the Eagles. The Rams should have beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. They return home here. Puka Nacua has been uncoverable. Devontae Adams looks good. Their run game looked better last week. I'm going to take the Rams to win. But at 3.5, this could very well be a 30-27 type game. This could be a 27-24. This very well could come down to a field goal. So I'm going to take the 3.5 with the Colts. So I'm going to take Colts to cover, Rams to win. I think Stafford finds a way at the end. McVay and this team gives the Colts their first loss. But again, I still am feeling out this Colts team a little bit. And the Rams have had injuries at corner, which really hurt them against A.J. Brown, which might be another reason why to bet the over. And then also offensive line-wise at guard, which definitely could hurt them against DeForest Buckner and company. So I like the 3.5 with the Colts. I'm not going to say either one is a bet, and I'll go with the over. Next, 47.5 is the total. Chicago and Las Vegas. Chicago minus 1.5. I'm going to take the over. I think both these defenses are flawed. I don't know what to think about the Raiders. Last week, they got behind big against the Commanders. They fought their way back, but they were never really close or competitive. Their defense, I feel like, has been really solid against the run most of the time, but they have a very leaky secondary, and they have a very predictable coverage scheme. They're extremely reliant on cover 3 match, which is the Seattle defense. And against a mind like Ben Johnson, when he knows what you're going to be playing 60% of the time in coverage, he's going to be able to dial things up for Caleb Williams to hit some big plays. So this is another advantageous matchup for Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams needs to be against defenses where he doesn't really have to think. Soon as Caleb Williams has to think, he's going to be exposed. The other thing is that Caleb Williams played a very similar scheme last week against Dallas. Now, Dallas is absolutely inept on defense. They certainly are not as well buttoned up or well coached as the Raiders. The Raiders are much better than the Cowboys. Don't get that mistaken on defense. At the same time, the Raiders don't have a lot of talent on defense. Their pass rush is solid, right? Max Crosby's going to have to wreck this game, but their linebackers are more downhill linebackers, run stuffers. They're not coverage guys. Their corners are flawed. I like the over because I think at the same time, Chicago has a beat up secondary. Linebackers are beat up. Their pass rush is mediocre. Geno should have time. Geno should be able to strike downfield. And Geno, even if he's chasing the score, if Ben Johnson gets some good drives early on and Caleb's able to hit these plays and they get ahead, I think the Raiders chasing from behind, they're going to be able to push this over. So if I had to bet anything here, I'd probably bet the over. I'm not really certain who's going to win. I kind of want to fade Chicago after they just beat the Cowboys in impressive fashion at home. Chicago also feels like a team that's just worse on the road than they are at home. And Caleb Williams against the crowd noise and things like that. But I don't have any trust with the Raiders. I don't know what I can lean on with the Raiders. Ashton Genty hasn't looked good. Their run game hasn't looked good. Their passing game has been spotty. Their defense has been spotty. I just don't have enough information on the Raiders yet. But at the same time, it does feel like a Bears letdown game. So I don't know, man. Like, I really don't know with this spread. I'm going to take Chicago. I was leaning Raiders early in the week, and now I'm like, because I kind of want to fade Caleb. But, it's tough, man. This is tough. This is a tough game. Just don't bet this game. Just don't bet this game. But I do think the over is a fair play. Next, 48.5 is the total for Ravens Chiefs. Ravens are favored by 2.5. I told you to bet the Ravens early in the week. I'm having my regrets somewhat. It is an Arrowhead, and it is a short week for the Ravens, and they still are without Matabike, who was absolutely critical to their defensive deficiency last week. They looked depleted against the Lions. But I'm still going to pick the Ravens to win and cover. And I'm going to go under 48.5. I just don't have enough belief in the Chiefs' offense. That's what it comes down to. Between these two teams, the Ravens have the much better offense. I do understand that Steve Spagnuolo has given Lamar some issues in some big games in the past. And the Chiefs are a good run defense, so they should be able to slow down Derrick Henry. But I don't think they'll be able to slow down Derrick Henry without resorting to it, like without committing to it. They have to commit to it. So that's going to, especially if Isaiah Likely is back this week, I do think that the Ravens can capitalize on Lamar running the ball, on their play action offense, on their tight ends winning their matchups against linebackers and safeties of the Chiefs. Zay Flowers is always tricky. Rashad Bateman could have a good, strong game here. So I do like the Ravens still to win this game and to cover, because I don't know what to rely on with the Chiefs offense. The Ravens have really struggled to stop the run this year, which is not a prototypical Ravens thing, and especially without Matabike, that's been a big problem. But they don't have the Lions offensive line. They don't have the Lions running backs. They don't have the Lions run game. The Chiefs can't run the ball. They couldn't run the ball against a Giants team that doesn't stop the run. They haven't been able to run the ball against the Chargers. They haven't been able to run the ball against the Eagles. What makes you believe they're going to run the ball against the Ravens, even if the Ravens can't stop it, right? And the Ravens might be able to simplify their defensive approach in this game because of how poor the weaponry is for Kansas City. And it might actually help them play competent defense. I think this is kind of one of those games that the Chiefs they pull the Ravens into the mud and it becomes ugly. But I just feel like the Ravens have more on offense here. It's kind of like the Eagles and the Chiefs and that game from a couple weeks ago, where the Eagles are clearly more talented. They're probably the better team. But the Chiefs' defense, Spags, kind of brings them down to their level, and it's tight, and it's close, and it's competitive. But I think ultimately the better team is the Ravens. The more talented team is the Ravens. And I do think the Ravens have more answers to score. So I'll take the Ravens to win. I'll take the under 48.5. Next, 47.5 is the total in Packers-Cowboys. Packers favored by 6.5. I have to take the over out of principle. Dallas has the worst defense I've ever seen. Packers, I'm going to take them to win and cover no matter if it's at 7 or 6.5. I think they win and cover. I think the simple formula here is no CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys. That depletes their offense. Their offense changes their identity. They look lost without CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott looks lost without CeeDee Lamb. And their offensive line has to block a little bit longer, a not great offensive line, against one of the best pass rushes in football, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt. These guys have looked fantastic throughout the first few weeks. They're a very fast defense. I think they'll be all over the Cowboys. I think they're going to be fired up. And on the other side, I think the Packers are just going to have a scheme to beat the Cowboys. I don't think it's going to be so much about the players of the Packers beating the Cowboys players. It's simply about the Cowboys. They can't tackle. They can't stop the run. They give up wide open players in the middle of the field. They don't know how to pass off their assignments. They're poor communicators in the back end of their defense. They're slow at cornerback. I just feel like Golden, this could be a breakout game. Kraft could have a massive game. Jacobs could get it going. We've seen Jordan Love tear up this team in Dallas before. Matt LaFleur is just going to have his way schematically. So I like the Packers big time here. I think they win by like 17 to 20 points. But I would also go over because I think there will be a point where Dallas starts to steam and steamroll down the field in terms of push their way back into this game. Dak will have some spirit. Dak will have some fight in the end, but it won't be enough. So I think the over is a fair play. I also like the Packers to win and cover. Monday Night Football. Jets, Dolphins. Give me the over 45, and I'll take the Dolphins to win and cover at home. Dolphins are in Miami, the heat of September. The Jets, I don't know who their quarterback is, Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. Justin Fields, better athlete, better runner. Tyrod, better quarterback, like better passer, better decision maker. Gets the ball out faster. Now, my concern about the Dolphins is that the Jets are better at the line of scrimmage than Miami. But why I like Miami is I think they're much better coached. I think Mike McDaniel is a much better coach than Aaron Glenn. We've actually seen Mike McDaniel have his way with the Jets personnel in the past couple of years. And I think that will be the same here from an offensive standpoint. I think Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, they could get Darren Waller back if that matters at all. Devon Achane. I think that Tua at home, he's going to be quick, decisive, get the ball out, negate the pass rush of the Jets. I think they'll find a multitude of ways to throw the ball. And I think the Jets defense has really struggled against every team they've played. Tampa Bay, who's a bit depleted on offense. The Steelers, who suck on offense. And then the Bills. They couldn't stop the run the entire game. I really like what I saw from Miami's run game against Buffalo. I also like just Tyreek, how he looks, how Jalen Waddle looks, Malik Washington. So this is actually close to a best bet territory because I think Mike McDaniel's fighting for his job and Aaron Glenn is a meme. And I think on the other side, I do think the Dolphins are still weak. Their run defense has been pushed around. Their pass rush has been subpar. Their secondary actually performed not bad against the Bills, to be honest. I think that they will make some plays. I think that they have enough talent to make some plays on defense, like Jordan Brooks and Dodson at linebacker. I thought Douglas looked decent at corner, and Jack Jones, he's a playmaker. I feel like he could jump one, and turn the tide of this game. Chubb looked better last week. Like, I feel like the Dolphins defense did look a little bit more cohesive against Buffalo and did make some timely stops. Zach Sealer's a good player. So I like Miami at home. I think this is a solid bet. I'll take them to win. They've been trending up, and I do think Mike McDaniel saves his job here for at least another week. But I will take the over because I think both defenses suck. Next, 44 is the total for Denver, Cincinnati. Denver is favored by 7.5. Give me the over, which would be my main play in this game. If I had to lean either way, something in my heart is telling me Cincinnati plus 7.5, but I don't love that. Denver at home, Monday Night Football, their pass rush against Cincinnati's offensive line is pretty severe. That's a pretty severe mismatch. But Cincinnati did beat Denver last year. That was with Joe Burrow, obviously. But I feel like these receivers had, their way against Denver. So maybe that happens again. But that's kind of why I like the over. Also, Cincinnati's defense, I think that the Broncos will be able to get it going, on offense. I think they'll be able to get it going down the field, throwing the ball, running the ball. I think they can replicate what Minnesota did. Lean a little bit more on their run game. Their screen game will probably be effective against Cincinnati here. Cortland Sutton should dominate. I think Bo Nix has a pretty solid game here. I'm not really sure what to do with the spread, to be honest with you. Denver does kind of need a big win, a decisive win, a blowout. Could they cover 7.5? 7.5. Do I trust Denver to cover 7.5? I don't know, man. Everyone's going to be fading the Bengals this week. So I kind of feel like I should take them with the points. That's kind of how I feel. So that's where I'm at for now. I'll take 7.5. I don't even want to have that in my picks record, to be honest with you. But it's gross. I'll take the Bengals with 7.5 to keep it competitive. When you watch that Vikings game back, they did fumble the ball. They did throw bad picks, continuously driving the length of the field against a good defense. I think they could push the ball. I think they can move the ball with Browning. So I'm going to take the 7.5. But I like the over. I think the over is a solid play. Just as I thought the over was a good play with the Vikings game last week, I think it's a good play in this game as well. So that might be where I end up. There it is, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this picks video for week number 4. It's Mitch. Gronk, spike the like button, and we'll see you in the next one. Check out my best bets coming soon. Peace.